The night was hot in Dubai. Neon lights flickered against the glass towers, while luxury cars lined the boulevard outside a grand restaurant where Sheikh Idris Al-Naim, one of the wealthiest millionaires in the Emirates, had just finished an extravagant dinner. The valet rushed forward, bowing as he presented the keys to Idris's limited edition Bugatti. Cameras flashed as curious onlookers whispered about his wealth, his power, his cold smile. But as Idris stepped toward the car, a voice pierced through the night. Shaky, desperate, almost drowned by the noise of the city. "Don't drive, please. Don't drive that car." Heads turned. Standing at the edge of the sidewalk was a ragged young black girl, barefoot, her clothes torn from the streets. Her hair clung to her damp forehead, and her eyes shone with terror. "Your wife. She cut the brakes," she screamed, her voice breaking. "If you get in, you won't survive the night." The crowd gasped. The guards rushed toward her, their hands already reaching to drag her away. Laughter erupted from some of the wealthy guests. Who would believe a homeless girl's rant against a man like Sheikh Idris? But Idris froze, his cold smile vanished, and for the first time, his expression shifted, not from anger, but from fear, because in her words, and in the trembling truth in her eyes, he recognized something that no stranger should have known. The Sheikh's hands trembled slightly as he looked from the girl to his glittering car, the same car his wife had insisted he drive that night. The glamorous world around him blurred. One question thundered in his mind: how does this girl know what no one else could? The guards lunged toward the trembling girl, their hands rough, ready to drag her into the shadows where no one would ever hear her again. But before they could silence her, she cried out, her words sharp enough to slice through the glittering air. "She doesn't love you, Sheikh Idris. Your wife wants your empire, your money, not you. She paid someone to make sure tonight would be your last ride." The crowd gasped again, a ripple of murmurs spreading like wildfire. Phones lifted as curious onlookers began recording. Suddenly, this was no longer a private embarrassment. It was becoming a public scandal. "Enough," roared Idris, his voice booming like thunder. His guards froze, unsure. The sheikh never tolerated insults, yet he raised a hand, stopping them from silencing her. The girl, shaking and barefoot, met his eyes with a courage that seemed impossible for someone who had nothing. "Check the car," she whispered. "Look at the brake line. Before you drive, please." The valet hesitated, eyes darting between Idris and the girl. The crowd held its breath. For a long moment, Sheikh Idris said nothing. His jaw clenched, his eyes narrowed. His pride screamed to dismiss her, to laugh, to call her a liar. But his gut twisted, because deep inside, he knew his wife, Layla, had been distant, too calm, too sweet lately, almost rehearsed. He raised a hand and ordered, "Open the hood, check the brakes." The valet and a mechanic rushed forward, kneeling beside the luxury car. The crowd leaned in, whispers rising, and then, the sound that shattered everything, a sharp gasp, followed by trembling words. "Sir, the brake line, it's been cut." Gasps echoed like thunderclaps. All eyes snapped back to the barefoot girl. She stood motionless, her chest heaving, as if she already knew what they would find. And Sheikh Idris, the untouchable millionaire, felt the ground shift beneath him, because the stranger from the streets had just revealed a betrayal closer than he ever imagined. The revelation spread through the hall like fire through dry grass. Guests clutched their pearls, cameras clicked, whispers rose higher. The image of Sheikh Idris's perfect empire had cracked, and everyone wanted to see the pieces fall. And then, through the golden doors of the restaurant, Layla Al-Naim, his wife, appeared. Draped in a gown of silver silk, diamonds glittering at her neck, she looked every inch the flawless queen of a billionaire's kingdom. "What is happening here?" she asked smoothly, her voice calm, even sweet. Her eyes scanned the crowd before settling on the trembling barefoot girl. The homeless girl flinched, clutching her arms tightly around herself, as if trying to shrink under Layla's piercing gaze. "She says," one of the guests blurted nervously, "that you cut the sheikh's brakes." The air froze. All eyes darted between the regal wife and the broken stranger. For a heartbeat, Layla's perfectly painted smile faltered, the tiniest crack. But then it returned, brighter than before. She laughed lightly, the sound sharp as glass. My brakes? My car? She shook her head gracefully. Surely you all see what this is. A beggar's trick. She saw a crowd, saw a wealthy man, and thought to spin a story for coins. Pathetic. Some guests nodded, eager to believe her, desperate to erase the scandal. But others, those who had seen the mechanic's face pale at the sight of the sliced brake line, whispered more furiously. Idris's eyes locked onto his wife. Her smile was flawless, but he saw it. The flicker in her gaze, the shadow of fear she tried to hide. He stepped closer, his voice low, dangerous. Then explain to me, Layla. How did she know? How did this street girl who has nothing know that my brake lines were cut? Before anyone touched the car, Layla's fingers tightened around her diamond clutch. For the first time, her voice wavered ever so slightly. Coincidence? A guess, nothing more. But Idris heard it, the tremor in her tone. The mask of the perfect wife was beginning to slip, and the homeless girl, her voice shaking but resolute, whispered again for only Idris to hear. She'll smile until the knife is at your back, Sheikh. I've seen it before. Because she isn't the first. The golden lights of the restaurant glittered, but to Sheikh Idris, everything had turned cold. His wife's smile, the murmurs of the guests, the cameras flashing like vultures. It all felt like a stage where he was being played for a fool. Idris raised a hand sharply. Enough! His voice boomed through the hall, silencing the whispers. Even Layla froze, her diamond smile stiffening. The guards looked to him, awaiting orders. For a long, tense moment, Idris's gaze shifted between his trembling wife and the barefoot girl whose eyes begged him to believe her. Finally, Idris pointed at the girl. Take her, he commanded, his tone low but decisive. Not away, not to the streets, to the guest house at Al-Naim estate. She is under my protection now. The crowd gasped. Layla's perfectly painted lips parted, shock flashing across her face before she regained her composure. Idris, you can't be serious, she said, her voice laced with disbelief. A street rat under our roof? What will people say? Idris turned, his eyes dark, unflinching. Let them talk. Better they whisper about my mercy than my death. The guards hesitated, then obeyed, guiding the homeless girl away gently this time. Not as a beggar, but as someone important. She looked back once, her wide eyes locking with Idris's. It was a silent exchange, a promise from him, and a warning from her. Layla's hand tightened around his arm as soon as the girl was gone. Her smile remained for the crowd, but her nails dug into his sleeve. You're making a fool of yourself, she whispered sharply. You're letting some filthy liar manipulate you. Idris leaned close, his voice cold as steel. Perhaps, or perhaps she has saved my life. Either way, I will find the truth. Even if it means tearing apart every lie in this house. For the first time, Layla's eyes flickered with something more than anger. Fear. The guests were still buzzing, the scandal already spreading beyond those walls. Idris knew that what began as a warning on the street had now grown into a storm that could consume his empire. And he had only one question burning in his mind. Why would a homeless girl know the secrets of my death? Unless she had seen the shadows of my wife's betrayal herself. The black gates of the Al-Naim estate closed behind the convoy, shutting out the noise of the city. Inside, Sheikh Idris walked swiftly through the marble halls, his face unreadable. His guards had taken the homeless girl, now wrapped in a clean shawl, to a guest room. But Idris did not rest. He summoned Omar, his most trusted investigator, a man known for uncovering truths others buried in graves. When Omar arrived, Idris spoke in a low, measured voice. Find out who she is, every detail, and find out why Layla is trembling beneath her smile. Omar bowed and left without a word. Hours later, in the quiet of the guest room, the girl sat on the edge of the bed. Clean now, her face revealed youth, but also scars of a life lived in shadows. Idris entered, his presence filling the room. You saved my life tonight, he said, his tone heavy. But I do not believe in miracles. Tell me, girl, who are you, and how do you know what you know? The girl's hands trembled as she clutched the shawl tighter. Her voice cracked, but she forced the words out. My name is Naima. I've lived on the streets since I was 12. But before that, I lived in a house where your wife Layla also lived." Idris's eyes narrowed sharply. "What are you saying?" Naima's eyes glistened with tears, but she pressed on. She was not always the queen of palaces. She once belonged to a man who gave her everything. But she betrayed him too. My father. The air in the room grew colder. Idris's heartbeat thundered in his chest. Naima's voice broke, but her words cut like glass. "She didn't just betray him, Sheikh. She destroyed him. And I watched it happen." Idris felt the ground shift again. This wasn't just a beggar's warning. This was the beginning of a web that stretched further than he ever imagined. A web that might reveal his wife's entire empire of lies. Naima's fingers twisted into the shawl, her eyes fixed on the floor as if the marble itself carried ghosts. Sheikh Idris stood tall before her, his voice sharp but steady. "Speak. Tell me everything." Naima swallowed hard, her voice trembling as memories clawed their way back. "My father's name was Hassan. He was no king, but he was respected. A merchant with a kind heart. We had little, but we were happy. Until Layla came." Idris's jaw tightened. "She was younger then," Naima continued. "Beautiful, clever, with a smile that could melt stone. My father adored her. He gave her jewels, dresses, a home. He even spoke of making her his wife. But to Layla, he was just a stepping stone." Naima's hands shook. "One night, I woke to shouting. My father's voice, broken with betrayal. He discovered her secrets, that she had another man in her sights, richer, more powerful. He begged her to stop, begged her to choose loyalty." Her eyes filled with tears, but she only laughed. "And the next morning, he was dead. A fall from the balcony, they said. But I know what I saw. I saw her standing there, her hands on the railing, watching him fall." The room fell silent. Idris's face turned pale, his throat tight. Naima whispered, her voice a blade cutting through the air. "She vanished after that, and weeks later, she appeared in your world, wrapped in gold, wearing the mask of the perfect wife, while I, Hassan's daughter, was thrown into the streets, because she made sure there was no place left for me." Idris staggered back a step. The woman he had built his empire beside, the woman he had trusted above all others, was not just ambitious, she was deadly. Naima's eyes locked onto his, raw and fierce. "She killed the man who loved her once, Sheikh. Do you really believe she would hesitate to kill you if it meant she could take more?" The truth was no longer a whisper. It was a storm tearing through the walls of Idris's soul. And for the first time, Sheikh Idris felt the ice-cold hand of fear clutch his empire from within his own home. The mansion's golden corridors seemed colder than ever as Sheikh Idris walked them in silence. Naima's words echoed in his skull like a drumbeat. "She killed once, she will kill again." But Idris was no fool. He had built an empire in a world full of wolves. And now, if his wife was truly the wolf in his bed, he would draw her out with her own fangs. That night, in the grand dining hall, Layla sat across from him, her diamonds catching the light like daggers. Her smile was flawless, but Idris now saw the cracks. The way her eyes shifted, measuring him, waiting. "My love," she purred, pouring his wine. "You were so shaken earlier. Surely you don't still believe that filthy girl's lies." Idris let the wine sit untouched. Instead, he leaned back, his expression unreadable. "I did some thinking," he said slowly. "Perhaps I overreacted. Perhaps I should drive tomorrow after all." Layla's hand froze for the briefest second before she quickly resumed her graceful motions. "Yes, of course," she said smoothly. "You should. Nothing clears the mind like a drive along the coast." Idris studied her carefully. That flicker in her eyes, it wasn't relief. It was anticipation. He gave her the faintest smile. "Then it is decided. Tomorrow, after breakfast, I'll take the Bugatti out. Alone." Layla's lips curved, but this time her smile reached her eyes, cold, victorious. "Perfect," she whispered. What she didn't know was that Idris had already made arrangements. The mechanic who discovered the cut brake lines had secretly been ordered to leave them as they were, untouched. Hidden cameras would capture everything, and Idris would not be the one behind the wheel. That role would belong to Omar, his investigator disguised. If Layla was the serpent Naima claimed she was, tomorrow's sun would rise not on her victory, but on her unmasking. Morning broke over the Al-Naim estate, bathing the marble halls in golden light. Servants moved silently, preparing the sheikh's breakfast. But beneath the calm, a quiet storm was brewing. Layla entered the dining hall in a flowing emerald gown, her diamonds glimmering like small suns. She kissed Idris lightly on the cheek, her smile radiant, practiced, the perfect mask of a devoted wife. "My love," she cooed, "the weather is beautiful. You must take the Bugatti for that drive we spoke of. It will do you good." Idris, dressed immaculately as always, lifted his coffee cup without answering. His eyes, sharp and unreadable, lingered on her a moment too long. Then he nodded slowly. "Yes. Today is the perfect day." Layla's smile deepened. Inside, her heart raced, not with love, but with triumph. She imagined the headlines, the sympathy, the empire sliding fully into her hands. Soon she would no longer be the wife of power. She would be the power. But what she didn't notice was Omar, disguised as a driver, quietly preparing the Bugatti. And what she didn't know was that every camera hidden inside the garage was watching her every move. When the car rolled out, the staff gathered discreetly, curious. Layla stood at the balcony, her silk scarf fluttering in the breeze as she waved with practiced sorrow. "Drive safely, my love," she called sweetly. Inside the car, Omar, wearing Idris's sunglasses, gave a curt nod, his face hidden. The Bugatti roared down the road, the engine screaming, the crowd watching. Layla's fingers tightened around the railing, her eyes fixed on the disappearing car. She whispered under her breath, words no one was meant to hear. At last, freedom. But her whisper wasn't lost. The microphone hidden in the brooch Idris had gifted her the night before caught every syllable. Inside his private office, Idris and Naima watched the feed. The sheikh's face hardened as the mask of his wife finally slipped. This wasn't suspicion anymore, this was proof, and for the first time in years, the empire of Idris Al-Naim trembled not from enemies outside his gates, but from the serpent that had been sleeping beside him. The Bugatti tore down the coastal highway, its chrome frame slicing through the morning sun. The staff at the estate murmured anxiously, some crossing themselves, others whispering prayers. From the balcony, Layla's eyes glistened, not with worry, but with the thrill of victory. She pictured the car spinning, tumbling, flames rising. And herself, the grieving widow in silk black. Inside the Bugatti, Omar tightened his grip on the steering wheel. Suddenly, snap! The brake pedal dropped loose beneath his foot. His heart leapt into his throat. The car surged forward uncontrollably, speedometer climbing, 100, 120, 140 kilometers. 8 gasps erupted from the mansion staff watching the road in the distance. Someone screamed. Another dropped a tray of silverware. On the balcony, Layla's lips curved into the faintest, cruelest smile. This is it. The end of Idris Al-Naim. But at the very last second, Omar yanked a hidden lever beneath the seat. With a mechanical hiss, the Bugatti's secret modification kicked in. An emergency override Idris had installed years ago, trusting no one. The car screeched, swerved, then spun in a cloud of smoke before coming to a dead stop inches from the cliff's edge. The staff watching from afar erupted in chaos. Some screamed in shock, others shouted prayers of relief. From the balcony, Layla's smile evaporated. Her nails dug into the railing, her chest heaving. The car door opened. Slowly, the figure in Idris's sunglasses stepped out. The staff gasped again. He wasn't limping, wasn't shaken, but alive, unbroken. Layla exhaled sharply in disbelief. How? How could he survive this? But her shock deepened when the sunglasses were removed. It wasn't Idris. It was Omar. The staff gasped louder, murmurs spreading like wildfire through the marble halls. Layla's hands trembled now, not from triumph, but from fear. Because if Omar was the one in the car, then where was Idris? A voice echoed behind her, deep and steady. "Enjoying the show, Layla?" She froze. Slowly her head turned, and there he stood, Idris Al-Naim himself, alive, unharmed, watching her with eyes like sharpened steel. The serpent had finally been cornered. Layla's knees buckled, her lips trembling as Idris stepped into the balcony light. The staff, the guards, even the gardeners below. Everyone froze, their gazes shifting between the real master of the house and his treacherous wife. You were supposed to be, Layla stammered, her voice cracking. Dead? Idris interrupted coldly, his voice cutting like a blade. Yes, that's what you wanted, wasn't it? The silence around them was suffocating. Only the crashing of waves far below broke the stillness. Layla tried to laugh it off, clutching her pearls. Darling, this is madness. I don't know what you're talking about. Perhaps you're mistaken. But Idris raised his hand. From the shadows, Omar stepped forward, holding up a tiny black device. With a click, the speakers hidden across the estate crackled to life. A voice filled the air. Layla's voice. Cut the brakes. He'll be dead before noon. Then everything will finally be mine. The staff gasped, some covering their mouths. A guard muttered a curse under his breath. Layla's face drained of color. That's not me. This is fake. But Idris stepped closer, his gaze locked on hers. I built an empire, Layla. Did you really think I wouldn't have ways to record every whisper in my home? Did you think the walls wouldn't tell me your secrets? Her mask shattered. You ruined me, she hissed, spitting venom now. Years in your shadow, smiling, bowing, playing the perfect wife while you hoarded your empire. Did you think I'd stay your ornament forever? Tears welled in Amina's eyes, the homeless girl who had warned Idris. She whispered to Omar, she would have killed him, and no one would have believed me. Idris turned to Layla one last time. You tried to end me, but you only ended yourself. At his nod, the guards closed in. Layla shrieked, clawing, her voice echoing through the mansion like a trapped animal. You'll regret this, Idris. You'll regret the day you crossed me. But her words faded as she was dragged away, her empire of lies crumbling around her. Idris turned to the gathered staff, his tone softer now. Let this be known. No power, no wealth, no name is worth a life built on betrayal. His gaze fell on Amina, and sometimes, the greatest warnings come from the ones we're most likely to ignore. A hush fell over the crowd as the Arab millionaire walked back inside, his figure tall, unbroken. Behind him, the necklace on Amina's chest glistened in the sun, like fate itself had chosen her to speak the truth. In the end, the empire survived, but its queen was dethroned. Idris learned that loyalty is rarer than gold, and that sometimes a stranger's warning can save your very life. Because betrayal hides in silk and diamonds, but truth can come from rags and hunger.